This is the Business Owners IT Podcast with Anthony Gerasch and Ryan Carter, where tomorrow's technology meets today's conversation.
Hi, I'm Tony Gerasch.
And I'm Ryan Carter, and this is the Business Owners IT Podcast.
A podcast where we discuss tips, tricks, and solutions for business owners involving all things tech.
And here's the point where we usually jump into the weekly review, but we did a deep dive on our last one, and I think now is a good time for another deep dive that's going to take us really deep into the CIS framework. I know we talk a lot about it. I think it's time for our business owners to kind of get an understanding on what each piece is to the CIS framework. So, Tony, can you tell us what the CIS framework is?
Sure. So I'll first start out with do some continuing education stuff about. It's probably been a year now. I was introduced to the CIS framework by some people, and there's been a big push to get frameworks in place. And the CIS framework is basically it's a not-for-profit, right? So it's available to everybody. And I brought some notes, but basically, John, when you get a chance, you can actually bring up the site for the CIS framework. The CIS framework are controls that are, I'm just going to read this to you guys. It's just easiest to do. So the CIS Center for Internet Security controls are a set of best practices designed to help organizations improve cybersecurity posture. As of the latest version, there are 18 CIS controls. So it's just easier to read that to you. So basically what it is, it's a list of controls that a business owner can align their business with.
So a framework for your cybersecurity for your work.
It's a framework for everything. It's not just cybersecurity. It's a framework for good posture, or good network posture, or hardware posture. There's 18 controls, so it's a way to gauge, I guess, how well you're doing with your computer system. I guess it's hard to explain, but that's what it is.
So I was in a meeting yesterday with somebody, and we were talking, and we started talking about the insurance forms. They want us to start filling that out for them. And one thing that they brought up is that they're just filling out so many forms. I wish there was a way. This is exactly what he said. I wish there was a way I just knew exactly what parts to check on these boxes. And that's when I told him, if you were following a framework that's like the CIS framework, then you would know what's going on in your business, what the postures of your business, so that you could put it into those insurance forms or whatever forms you're filling out. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, and a lot of those forms, as you go through them, they're not referencing the CIS framework, but they align with the CIS framework. So a lot of things they're asking you are within the controls, the 18 controls of what they're asking and what they expect.
Okay. And with these controls there that you mentioned earlier, there's different groups.
Yeah.
So essentially, who is the CIS framework for, and maybe with those groups?
So again, I'm going to use a cheat sheet because it's just easier than me trying to explain it. Before this, I wrote down some things. So, CIS has 3 groups, right? So there's the basic controls. It's for all organizations and focus on essential, easy to implement practices. So that's group 1 is like the minimum you could do. And it's very very easy to align with. Then you get into group 2. Okay, so again, each of these 18 things that go, there's a group 1 with them, and then they add a little bit more. Group 2 builds on the basic and is suited for organizations ready to take on more advanced security measures, more controls or things to align with. And then you get into group 3, right? They target mature organizations with established security programs focused on strategic long-term goals. Okay, so those are the 3 groups. And at Unique Computing Solutions, we've adopted the CIS framework. We align with the CIS framework. It's an ongoing process, right? So I'll let you talk a little bit about that, Ryan, because you worked on that. But talk about how we align with the CIS framework and what the tool that we're using to get to that, to document it, to show that we align.
Yeah. So I don't know what the acronym stands for, but there's a lot of tools out there called GRCs that they use to help you align with different frameworks. We use one called Compliancy Manager. And first thing we had to do is identify what group we were in. We put ourselves in group 2, and we're going to start moving towards group 3 for this framework. And then basically what we do is we go through each one of the controls all 18 of them, and figure out what we need to do as a company to align with that control, or if we're going to align with that control. And 100% of the time we ended up aligning with all of those controls and working our way into obviously that group 3 piece, but we're not quite there yet for that one. And if you wanted to, Tony, I do have a question back at you. So we aligned with group 2, and inside of it says that, you're an organization ready to take on more advanced security measures. When, as an organization, do I know I'm ready to start needing those advanced security measures?
Well, I would argue that if you have if you have 10 to 600 employees, I mean, at some point, the more employees you get, the more equipment you have, the more chance you have for a cyber incident. So, I would say, if you're a good sized business, 10 to 15 people, I mean, it's time to start looking at it. If if your business is heavy in the internet, right? Or if you're taking credit card data, or if, you have a lot of data. I mean, it's different for everybody else. Now I'm not saying that a 15-person coffee shop, right, should potentially do this, right? They can a little bit, but I'm not saying that. But, if you're a 15-person, let's say, engineering company or a survey company or a manufacturer or a distributor or somebody that, your main business is service, right? And you're creating a lot of intellectual property stuff, then you should start to think about aligning with it, or at least know where you're at in your posture.
Yeah, good point. Insurance agents,
software developers, people that have a lot to lose. I mean, they should consider aligning with it.
Yeah, and then back to the question you asked me, as we go through these 18 controls, we will probably talk about how we as Unique Computing Solutions align with those controls, and it's going to help show what we've done as a company and give that basis of how we talk about them. And as we go, I guess we should talk about those 18 controls. Do you want to go through those?
Yeah, I will. I just want to reiterate one thing. I know we're not, we did group 1 and 2, but we can't be far from group 3 because we're doing more, some more than what is required for group 1 and 2.
Yes.
Yeah. So we just haven't, it's a long process. I mean, this is, we've been doing this for a year and a half or longer. And, it's a tough process even for us to get all these ducks in a row and aligned. So, meaning that we know that we're compliant, but we have to document it, right? Because you don't want to have a framework. The worst thing that you could possibly do before I get into the framework is say, oh, yeah, I align with the CIS framework. And you tell your insurance company that, or you tell people that, and then all of a sudden you get in court. You told them in a presentation, oh, we align with the CIS framework, right? And you don't have any documentation. So it's like, so you have to have a way to document it. You can't just have, a security policy, and you can't have just pieces of it, say you align with it, but then can't prove it.
Yeah.
So that's what the compliancy manager does. So as we get into the controls, I'm going to read the 18 controls, and this is going to be a podcast of multiple sessions, right? We'll probably do, talk about each one in a separate episode. So because there's just so much to talk about on each of them and what it means. My goal as we get into this is to try to explain in layman's terms to business owners what the CIS framework is. What do they mean?
Yes.
And not have it be so technical. It's not really about the technical part of it. It's more about, what are they trying to protect, or why is this important?
Yeah, and another thing to look at too is, these 18 controls, when you stare them down, is almost a daunting task. Yeah. And you almost have to start looking at it as, I don't want to use the words best effort, but at least when you get started, you need to just get started and start doing it and get something down on paper and then evolve and always see. We use that compliancy manager that we check at quarterly, and we redo, and we just look at what we've done and make it better each and every time. And then that's why we probably haven't pushed into 3 yet, is because I want 1 and 2 to be perfect before I move into 3.
Sure, absolutely. And yeah, so let's move on, and I'm going to read the 18 controls so you guys know what we're going to be talking about. And again, at the beginning of the podcast, John put up a link to the CIS website. And you can read more about this there. So you can use that as a reference. But the number one control, right, is inventory control of enterprise assets. Number two, inventory control of software assets. What does that all mean, right? That's what we're going to talk about in the coming days. Data protection. Number three is data protection. Number four, security configuration of enterprise assets and software. I mean, what does that mean, right? We're going to help you understand what that means. Account management, identity management. That's number five, account management. That's identity management. That's what you're talking about there. Number six, access control management. That's access to resources. How are you controlling it? Seven, continuously vulnerability management. That's a good one. What does that mean? Continuously vulnerability and management. Number eight, audit log management. What does that mean? What are they talking about there? Number nine, email and web browser protection. Number 10, these are the ones you guys don't understand. Like, we're getting down to number 10, malware defense. I mean, why is that number 10? Data recovery.
We've always talked about this one in other episodes.
Number 11.
It's so far down there.
Yeah, so why is data recovery number 11? Well, let's just say if we don't know what we're recovering, 1 and 2, how can we do if you don't know what you're protecting, how can you recover it? How can you identify it? Number 12, network infrastructure management. What does that mean? Security, awareness, and skills training. Number 13. Number 14, service provider management. That's your vendors. Number 16, incident response management. Number 17, penetration testing. Now you're getting into the group 3 where you're actually getting penetration tested. Number 18, security management and governance. So we're going to take a deep dive into all of these, with you guys, and it'll be in future episodes.
Yeah. So if you're still with us after those 18, you can tell why we decided not to do this all in one episode. I don't think we have enough time in the day, and I don't think John has enough battery on his laptop to record this. But
at least he has his power supply this time.
Yeah, he's taken care of today. Yes. So we'll get through this.
Get through this.
And that's the main reason why we're not doing it all in one. I mean, we want to do it in layman's terms and give you guys everything you need to hit the ground running with this and ask the right questions to the right people. So, in our next episode, we are going to talk about inventory and control of inventory and control of enterprise assets. So, I think that'll take us to the next one.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to the Business Owners IT Podcast, and we hope to see everybody on the next episode where we're going to take a deep dive into control number 1, inventory control and enterprise assets.
Thank you.
Unique computing solutions. Your IT challenges solved.